How's everybody doing? Welcome. Hello. I'm Michelle Lynn. We are here today um, for, I think we're calling it Cooking Up Success, which is just like a fun little free 10, 15, 20-minute training that I do on a weekly basis. Most of this is coming through the Interior Designers Business Launchpad, but we also stream onto, or we upload into YouTube. And then, of course, we have the Zoom recordings that you guys are here on. So thank you for being here. I think we are here 3 times a month at 1 o'clock Central Standard Time on Wednesdays. Today's Wednesday, right? Today's Wednesday. Y'all, I just realized that my daughter is starting school a week from today. So I need to get my booty in gear when it comes to getting her school supplies. Oh my gosh, it's crazy, isn't it? We are talking today about too many cooks in the kitchen. And the theme, Cooking Up Success, Too Many Cooks in the Kitchen, is because my paid program. So let me introduce myself. I'm all over the place today. Let me introduce myself. My name is Michelle Lynn, and I am the owner of ML Interiors Group, which is an award-winning interior design firm in Dallas, Texas. And because my interior design firm is pretty much on autopilot, I have the blessing to spend time coaching and mentoring interior designers. My love is for the interior designers who are maybe in the 5-figure revenue and itching to break into the multiple 6 figures in revenue without trading their time for money, so that you can still work your design firm with passion and profit. And so my paid program is called the Interior Design Business Bakery. So we have all of these fun little isms that are talking about cooking up success, sweet and sweet, what the Sweet and Sour Society, Allie, Sweet and Sour. It is the Sugar and Spice Society. And yeah, thank you. There's my website. So if you guys want to get involved and figure out how you can stay in touch or how you can get some mentorship, it's all right there. We also have a podcast of the same name, Designed for the Creative Mind, which is my overall platform. So anywho, that's who I am. Thank you guys for being here. I recognize some faces, so that's super fun to see you. We are talking about too many cooks in the kitchen. And so what I mean by that is that when designing, for the most part, y'all, is easy, right? So in a vacuum, designing is seamless, no pun intended. But then you start getting people involved and it just gets complicated and it can go off the rails like in so many different ways. And you guys feel free. I'm checking my comments chat over here. Feel free if you have any questions to drop them into the chat today. So that's what we're talking about today, is like when you get too many humans involved, like it can go off the rails. So a couple of scenarios would be you've been communicating, let's just say with the wife, right? And if you were in my workshop or if you've been in the bakery, you know that the process is the qualifying call and then the free meet and greet and then the initial visit and then the scope of work, preparation, and presentation. So let's just say you've been hanging out with the wife, and you get to the point where you're signing the contract, and then the husband comes and he comes to the scope of work presentation with the signing of the contract as well. And he's just like, okay, hold on a second. This pricing doesn't work. What do you mean, honey? We're going to be doing the foyer as well as the formal dining room. Like the scope of work completely changes, or maybe you've been working with both of them, but she's been leading the design project. And you get to the design presentation and he shows up and he's got like all these new opinions that you hadn't heard about. What do you do? Okay, so these are the types of things we're talking about. Your ideal client, maybe you've been working with him or her, whatever that is, and they start sending you ideas. Like, oh, okay, so they signed the contract you're doing the design and you're getting these text messages, right? You're getting these text messages that basically says, oh, look, it's empty, but you know what I mean? Hey, my best friend or my sister or somebody, she's got an eye for design, and here's some ideas. Like, and then you're like, okay, well, I thought we already came up with our concept. And so then, but you came up with the concept, and it turns out that your client is asking her, let's just say her bestie, for her opinions. And now you're getting pushback here from what you had already started designing around, which was agreed upon. And these are things that have happened to us at ML Interiors Group. So last one would be, maybe it is, you're working closely with the wife and the mother-in-law starts tagging along. Goes, maybe you take them shopping, which I don't recommend, but maybe you do. Or site visits, you're walking the renovation, or you are sharing information, and you can feel your client getting a little amped up because mother-in-law has an opinion. Well, my son won't like that. La, 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 la. Okay, so this is real world stuff. Am I right? This is real world stuff. If you guys have ever come across this, don't hesitate to drop it into the chat. So I want to talk about how you handle this. How do you handle these scenarios? So I keep saying so. Have you noticed that? I say so a lot. Well, if I do say so myself. The very first thing that I want to talk to you about is, let's talk about communication. In my workshop a couple weeks ago, it was rolling in the dough, how to qualify, quote, and close amazing clients while you're baking your profits into the project. We were talking about how you're the professional. This is your business. You run it the way you want to run it, but you need to do that from the very start. So having clear communication from the beginning is key. You're going to want to ask the hard questions about everything pretty much on the front end. Of course, what is the budget? What is your timeline? But also, as you're going through this process, you want to sort out who the decision makers are, whose opinions are going to be relevant in the overall scheme of things, in the overall project. And anybody who has an opinion or has decision-making power per se, they need to be at the meetings. They need to be present at the scope of work meeting. Okay, so when you're presenting, this is what I'm going to do, and this is how much it's going to cost, and here's an estimated purchasing budget, the decision maker needs to be there. The decision maker needs to be in the interview process of your design development. They can't just be showing up and tanking all of the work that you've done. So that's something that you need to tell your prospect on the front end. It's like, who's going to be involved in the decision making, and they need to be present. And if you're organized enough, tell them they need to be present at this meeting, at this meeting, and at this meeting. These are mandatory. The other in between are suggested, but they're not mandatory. And then if they can't make it to those meetings, then at the very front end, if they're telling you they can't be there, then reschedule them. Or you're going to have to tell them, well, then this is not going to be a good fit because you're not a mind reader. And hopefully you get to the point in your business that you're not working weekends, evenings, or holidays. So if they can't be there during the day, if they can't Zoom in or FaceTime, then there's going to be an issue. There's going to be an issue. I'm personally juggling this sort of scenario at ML Interiors Group with a guy who's just kind of started, that the husband shows up with all of these opinions, yet he's not showing up to the mandatory meeting. So we're about to have a conversation. We're going to talk about that in just a moment, because the second thing that you need to have is a solid contract. In your contract, you should be stating to your clients who are going to sign this what your process is for revisions, what the consequences are for changes. And by consequences, I mean the change order fees. Okay. The budget. You should have, when you present them with the final budget, you get a signature on it. This one particular client, they wouldn't sign off on the budget. And it's not because they didn't like the budget. It's just because they're busy and unorganized. It's not personal. They're busy and unorganized. So with that, we didn't start the design process until we had these things signed off on, because in a former life, and I say former life, but years ago, we did the design that had not been fully signed off on. And then they came back and said, no, we don't want that budget, when we had already spent 40 hours, 50 hours designing. So now we require that we get a signature. Hallie says, what do you do when the wife says, oh, my husband doesn't care? Thank you, Hallie, for posing that question. When the wife says, oh, my husband doesn't care, well, then you just need to make sure that you hear that from him and tell her. Say, I get it. You know, we have some clients that the husband doesn't have a strong opinion. He doesn't have much opinion. He's like, honey, you take care of everything on the inside. I've got everything on the outside of the house. That's what works for them. And it's true. He doesn't have an opinion as long as he gets his place to sit, this recliner. So basically what you need to do is you just need to have her sign off on it, or have her confirm that that's the case by having him present for at least one meeting. That's my suggestion. You also have to go with your gut. Most individuals that we've dealt with in the decade that we've been in design, we've had one woman who said that her husband doesn't care, and she was right. Everybody else is like, oh, I need to check with my husband. Oh, let me make sure my husband's here once we remind him, things along that line. So it doesn't come up very often. And all you need to do is explain to this individual why it's important that the husband's there. Okay. It protects her and it protects you. So if by chance you did not communicate on the front end what your expectations are, okay, or you don't have a contract that's going to protect you from these revisions, here's what you need to do. One, you need to go rewrite, you need to go insert this clause into your contract right away and have your attorney sign off on it. Here's how many revisions you get included in the design fee. Here's the fee after that. And then here's the consequences after that. So just write that all out. Second is you need to go back into your funnel, your sales funnel process, and make sure that you mention this at least once, if not 3 times in that process, that we need to have all decision makers there. And asking, who are the decision makers? Because I wouldn't imagine that, you know, in scenario number 2, that my ideal client would be talking to her bestie, and her bestie, who has a design eye, has an opinion. Okay. I didn't expect for the mother-in-law to start tagging around, or the husband to come home at the end, you know, at maybe just showing up at the design presentation and putting a kibosh on it. So we want to talk about that. If you don't have these other areas to fall back on. So that's the first thing you do, is if this happens, you fall back and you say, okay, Missy, your design bestie. Thank you, Eleonora. I see that. I will get to it. Your design bestie needs to be here and understand the process, or you just need to trust me because you hired me. It's in my contract that all the decision makers have been laid out. They're the ones who signed the contract. The scenario with the husband showing up. Let me tell you what we're in the process of doing. We've texted, we've emailed, and we've called. So one thing is you need to find out how. Oh yeah, Eleonora, that's a good one. when they bring their best friend to get another opinion on the design proposal and the best friend makes them doubt her choices. That's a whip. That's a whip. Where you can overcome a lot of this is going to be reminding them that you're the professional. Okay, reminding them that they hired you for a reason. It's important that you remind them that this is what you do on a regular basis. And y'all, you need to own that. You need to step into that professional identity and own it. So Eleonora, when your client shows up and they bring their best friend, we need to be respectful to that best friend and share with them, hey, I totally get it. I understand that. But let me tell you, I have looked at all of the resources that are available to meet your budget, your timeline, and your style. I've looked at at all of these to the trade solutions. And this is the best one. Turn this off. Oh, well, I guess I'm not turning off. And this is the best one. So you have to step in and out. You have to step into you have to step into like being able to speak, first of all, so that you have some credibility. But you need to step into your professionalism and knowing that what your selection is the best selection. And then you need to step out of your people-pleasing mode. You are here to look after the client, not the best friend. You don't want to hurt the best friend's feelings. You don't want to be rude about it, all of those things. Okay, we know that. That's just easy enough. But at the end of the day, it's your responsibility to advise your client on why your selections are the best selections. And yeah, as Hallie said, this isn't personal. This is not personal. When the mother-in-law shows up, it's not personal about you, it's about her. When the best friend shows up, it's not about you, it's about her. Her wanting to feel important. She probably didn't have the balls to start her own interior design firm, so she's living vicariously through you. She doesn't realize that she's actually doing more harm to her friend. So basically, just remember that. She didn't have enough balls to do it herself. You did. Okay, so take that, chickie. This is why my selection's the best. If you don't have some of these things in place, this is when you have a conversation. This is the conversation we're about to have. And that comes down to, hey, we need to make sure that we're making decisions. We need to keep this process moving forward. By inserting these other individuals into the decision-making process, they don't understand a lot of what we discussed on the front end. They're coming in with only half of the knowledge. What you shared with me was your budget. What you shared with me was your timeline. Could there be a better solution? Probably. If I made something custom that's going to take 12 to 14 weeks and cost twice as much. Okay, which is not necessarily the case, but you're wanting them to move forward. Okay, it could be the case, you don't know. So you're going to give them that understanding that you're still looking out for them, and that while you understand and appreciate that this other party has their best interest in mind, they don't have all of the information and they don't have all of the resources like you do. Sarah, hey girl, good to see you. Yeah, it's a good idea to have that information. I believe we have it in the questionnaire that we send after the meet and greet and before the initial visit. Who are going to be the decision makers? And then if you want to add a clause below, in your contract, I don't think I have it in there, but it's not a bad idea. I might go back and do so. Then you might want to add we, the undersigned below, understand that we are the final decision makers, and blah, blah, blah. So that might not be something bad to add. If the husband or wife or whatever, if another party shows up when you're doing the design, the final design, and there's this new information that you hadn't heard before, then you need to call a quick powwow. So you get to the design presentation and he comes in and says, hey, no, I don't like this couch. Or I don't like the final price, or whatever the case may be. You are very, I don't want to say welcome, but this is your business. You're allowed to call them out and say, Bob, where have you been? Like I've been working with Sue this entire time, and I've included you on the emails asking where you were because I wanted your opinion through here. Now tell me what you don't like about that sofa, because in our original conversation, and you can have that difficult conversation, but the powwow needs to be, okay, guys, we need to all get on the same page. And if you don't have a clause about what you're going to do next, then you might take that moment and go on to an hourly retainer so that you can make these revisions. You need to be paid for this time. If they're coming back and they're putting the kibosh on it, that's where you need to make sure that you have your processes and your procedures in place. If you don't have them in place, and I'm kind of speaking out of two sides of my mouth, you may end up having to eat your time. I'll tell you, that's how I've learned many hard lessons, is because I had to eat crow or whatever it was. So keep that in mind and go back and review your practices. And do not be afraid to require all decision makers showing up for specific meetings in your process. My suggestion is going to be, at minimum, the scope of work presentation, contract signature. Minimum is going to be an interview. And then also for the final design presentation or pre-presentation, depending on how you roll your designs out. And if they can't make it, reschedule it. If it's just like the wife is going to say, oh, Bob can't make it, but I'll show up. Okay, sorry, babe, Bob needs to be there. Why don't we reschedule? And if you're pushing their design out, even though it's an inconvenience for you as well, it's going to be disappointing for them. So at the end of the day, the message here is that you need to have good communication on the front end. So much for my 10 to 15 minute training, y'all. We just went into 24 minutes. Thank you for your patience. You need to have good communication on the front end. You need to have everything documented. And you need to just continue to make it clear what your expectations are as you run your business. So I think I was very long-winded in my delivery, but hopefully that helps as you start to navigate and become more sophisticated in your designs and your clientele. And just let them know. Part of it is just let them know that you're there to serve both of them. You want them both to feel comfortable. I want each of you to love this design equally because it's a shared home. And so you're there to serve both of them. So if you guys want to know more about business of interior design, like I had mentioned earlier, I've got a podcast called Design for the Creative Mind. Hey, Lynn, good to see you again. We do have what we call the Sugar and Spice Society, which is a membership that focuses on building your revenue with the intention of, or the hopes is that you build your revenue enough that you can invest in the interior design business bakery, where we teach you how to implement these processes and these procedures and making sure that you have everything buttoned up. So that's it for this week. Hallie, do you remember what we're talking about next week? Are we around next week? Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing for dinner, so yeah, I'll have to get back with you on that. It's planned. I just don't have it in my brain yet.
That is greatness, y'all. We keep it real around here. Feel free if you have any interest in getting involved, getting some coaching, getting some mentorship, just getting some guidance and direction. Hallie can let you know how we can give you some support. We are here to serve the design community and focus on the community over competition. So hope to see you guys again soon. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all of your support. We'll see you guys soon.